Hey everyone, and good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Futures Fever. I'm your host, Kevin Dubriske, and on today's show, I'm going to be covering a few key factors of where the market is headed and what's going on in the market that might be keeping us at this standstill. So, what's on the agenda today? I'm going to show you why trading with a prop firm makes sense, how Apex Trader funding works, and like I said before, live market insights and trade setups. So, some setups that I've been taking recently that have shown that they have been working pretty consistently. So, why trade with Apex Trader funding? Apex Trader funding is a prop firm that allows traders to access funded accounts without risking personal capital. And as you guys see on the banner above, they are currently running an 80% off on all evals. So we could trade futures markets with prop firm capital. We keep up to 90% of your profits, and that's after the 100% of the first 20,000 you make. And there's no personal liability, right? We trade with confidence. When we don't have that personal liability attached to our trading account, we could sort of trade without emotion, but not trade freely, right? We want to trade following our setup, but without the nervousness that we might lose real money or real capital. We're trading with the opportunity to make profits, but with very little risk of our own capital. Great stuff. That's what a prop firm is all about. So how it works. First, we have to pass the evaluation. Hey, what's going on? Good morning. Hello. So when you pass the evaluation, what you're telling the prop firm is that you're proving to them you have consistency and proper risk management, right? That means you followed their rules, you hit the profit target, and you're about to be funded. So once you get that funded account, you're then able to trade the live markets with Apex's capital. Now, sometimes you will still be on a paper account, but that's just because they want to see your consistency on your funded account as well. But don't worry, guys, they will still give you your payouts as long as you follow their rules. And it's really quite simple rules that we should be following as consistent traders anyways. Withdraw profits, keep 90% of what you make. And it's really flexible trading rules, no long-term commitments, and instant scaling opportunities. Some other prop firms, unfortunately, will limit you to how much you could scale in, whereas Apex really gives us the most out of it. Hey, what's going on, Fairchild? Hello, hello. So major sale going on. They do still have 80% off. Use promo code FEVER. This discount code ends today at midnight Eastern, so we still have about 12 more hours on the sale. $125 for a one-time PA fee on any account size. So most accounts, the PA fee for the one-time lifetime fee, I know the 50K account starts around 160, so already a great sale there. When you start to build up to the 150, 250, that's when the one-time PA fees. Now PA's price action, right? These are our live accounts. What's going on, Lion? Good morning. Hey, Kavitha, hello. So this is our one-time lifetime fee. So if you pass a 150K evaluation account on Apex, where it's usually a $250 PA fee, one-time PA fee, it's only $125. That is 50% off that one-time PA fee. Great discount. And the 150 to 300K evals are all priced at $297, which is a sale in its own. Plus, you get the 80% off, which brings these higher valued accounts all the way down to about $50, $60 per account, per evaluation account. Now, the sale does end today at midnight. Apex has paid out over $400 million worth since 2022, guys. That is huge. That's over $100 million over the past 3 years each year. That is crazy. And guys, don't forget, you do get to win a free evaluation. You do have to fill out the form in the comments. We're going to post that below. You guys fill that out for a chance to win. This week's winner is Raja. Congratulations. That is, last week's winner. Congrats on your free evaluation account. Fill out the form. It will be below. Join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. That's when we host these Future Fevers sessions. And that's when you guys could get the chance to win a free account. Are there going to be 90% sales coming soon? That's a great question. I'm not sure right now. Currently, they are only running the 80% sale, and they have that ending tonight. So we're going to be a little patient. We'll see how that plays out. I do think it's a good sale, and you should definitely take advantage of it, because sometimes they might go about a month or so where they don't run a sale. Now, if that's the case, guys, and there are no sales running, you could still use discount code FEVER to get 50% off, right? So at least you're going to be getting that. You won't be paying full size, because that's what we like to set everybody up with. So let's get into the markets, and let's see which markets are moving in which direction. Now, first, I did want to cover, though, the Apex Trader website. So they are running the 80% off evals for another 12 and a half hours. So you do have some time before purchasing. If we come down, we can see the price list of those real quickly before we get into some markets. Today, guys, we're going to cover gold, crude oil, and the ES, and maybe the NASDAQ as well. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite futures index to trade? Now, here we have the 50K account with a profit target of 3,000, a trailing stop of 2,500, and it's set at 167 a month. So right now with the 80% off sale, that brings it to about $30, $40. Great discount on that. Let's see. So we also have a 75K full account. We have 100K. So it does range, but we have to remember when we're going up in size, we're also going up to higher profit goals while the trailing threshold barely moves. So we have a 2,500 trailing threshold on the 50K account, and we have a 3,000 trailing threshold on the 100K account. So it is double the account size, but only gives you about 500 more cushion. Do I need to register with my Apex email on the forum? No, you could enter any email. You'll get an email if you win. So you'll get an email from us over at Benzinga saying, congratulations, you won. And then they'll give you a code to punch in with your Apex account. Great question. All right, guys, let's get into some markets. And I'm going to show you guys a strategy that I've been using lately on gold. So the first thing I want to point out on gold is we're going to look at the daily time frame. And for that, we're going to come over here, open it up on the daily, and we see that we're sort of range bound for the past, let's call that 5 trading days. So 5 bars would be 8 days in total. We've been range bound on gold between, and we could use our ruler tool one more time, between about 28.84 and about 29.56. So I noticed that range today, and I was able to take some short positions off of that previous day high and some supply zones. And down here, I was able to take some long positions based off of this next strategy that I'm going to cover soon. Now, that strategy is a great strategy to use, just like any strategy in the market, but we have to make sure we have the proper market conditions to really fulfill the needs and really give us the best probability on those trades. So here we have the 15-minute on gold, and I see our orb. The orb is the opening range breakout. Let's see, I have it right here, and we're going to bring our 15-minute time frame, and I'm going to hide all of our drawings. So right now we have our orb high and our orb low. To find the opening range break, which is the ORB, we have to mark out the 15-minute candle open at the New York session, so 9:30 candle on the 15-minute time frame. You're going to mark out the low, and you're going to mark out the high. Now, something I've noticed a lot lately on gold is we've been getting a whole lot of double breaks. Now, we're not going to look at this day because this day was this Tuesday? Okay, so Tuesday did give us a single break. I was going to say Monday also gave us a little bit of chop, but Monday we were closed. The markets were closed on Monday for President's Day, but the futures markets were still open till 1 p.m. Eastern. Excuse me, dealing with a little bit of a cold. I hope everybody in here is keeping healthy and keeping well. Cold season is in full effect, so make sure you guys stay hydrated. So I saw a lot of breakdowns. I also saw recently on gold, this breakdown was very strong, and it was during the New York session. So a lot of times we'll get a big move on gold, but that'll be pre-market. This move right here, this was from 8:30 to 9:30, so right up until the market opened, and then we chopped around. So that was a very tough trade because we would have had to been trading this before the market opened, which is very possible, especially when trading something like gold or even crude, because these commodities don't really need that New York session volume in order to move, because these are all heavily traded within different countries around the world. So I noticed we have a lot of double breaks on gold. This is the high, this is the low, this is the price action. So we broke to the downside, then we closed back within range, and we made our way back to the upside. And I saw that was happening very frequently on gold. And what I also like to use was this tool on Edgeful. It's called Edgeful, and it shows me the opening range breakout 15-minute on gold standard for New York. We have it 50% of the time. We have a double break. Okay, so that's very in my favor. Should be expecting this to happen. Now, when I come down to the reports and the table down here, it shows me that we had a crazy streak of double breaks for 1, 2, 3, 6, 9 days in a row, all double breaks on gold. So that gives me the idea and perspective that gold might be range bound, but as a day trader, I have to take advantage of that and say, okay, well, how can I trade this double break? Can I look for resistance? And look at this. This lines up perfectly. So we have a pre-market high because this was happening at 8:15, and we took out the pre-market high after having our first break to the upside. Once we started to reject, we would have been able to set up a short position with our stop loss at that recent high we made, and we would have been able to target the low of the orb, right? Because we were expecting a double break, and at this point, we knew that the double breaks were happening very frequently. So once we got the break in one direction, we know that we could then target that next area or high or low. We break to the upside first. We're going to look for some short positions at resistance to target the downside. If we break the downside first, we might look for some support to target the upside. As we see right here, we have our 15-minute orb. We broke down first. We found some support right here, and we were able to move back higher off of that. And no matter where our entry would have been, we could always come to our replay system and see how the 5-minute was looking at that point, because when I'm trading the 15-minute and 30-minute time frames, I want to be aware of how the 5-minute is closing. I don't want to go too deep into a 1-minute, because when we start looking at a very low time frame, but our analysis is on like the 30-minute or the hourly, we're trying to execute trades on the 1-minute, it could really start to sway and give us some poor entries. We're going to take a lot more losses than we really have to. Hey, what other instruments have enough volume to trade without New York volume? So yeah, that's a good question. Gold is a good one. Crude is a good one. These are the main two that I like to trade. We could take a look at crude oil. First, we'll see how this 5-minute played off. I do think this is actually how that trade ended up playing out. It gave us our move higher. It gave us our new order block right there. We would have been able to target up here. So again, we would look for longs by a level of support, like the low of the 15-minute orb, or if we could possibly retest in there one more time, but it doesn't look like it even gave us that retest, right? We found support, we bottomed out, and we were able to move higher, and if we put our volume on, I'm sure that even picked up as well. Look at this. On our break to the upside on the orb, we see the volume started to pick up. So gold is a great one to trade pre-market for the first hour or two before the NYSE hours open. GC, that is, and then CL is crude oil. Now, guys, we have to be super careful when trading something like crude oil lately, especially with everything going on in terms of, Trump tariffs and just overall market conditions in the economy. Let's get rid of our replay system. Replay system still going. Perfect. So here's crude on the daily. And as we see, when we were up here, it looked like crude oil was not looking back, right? We had a very strong move. We were continuing higher. We were breaking recent highs. Markets were very strong up until he started announcing some ideas of tariffs, high tariffs, especially a 25% tariff on Canada, which Canada supplies 60% of the US's crude oil supply. So if we're going to put a high tariff on something like crude oil or Canada, then we're going to feel that also as consumers. So it's something to keep note of. Since that happened, we got a very strong pullback on crude oil, giving us a very nice downside move. Look at this. Lower highs, lower lows. It was giving us a pretty nice move up until just recently. Now, what I would want to note on crude oil is I can't remain bullish on the daily time frame until we're able to break this recent lower high we made. I'm going to mark that out so it's pretty clearly drawn for you guys. Now we're going to use the ARC tool on TradingView. And as we see on crude oil, we have a lower high here, a lower high here, and that's off of this higher high. So when we were uptrending, we were making higher highs, higher high, higher high, higher high. Now we're making a lower high, a lower high. So if we could break above this 73.65, we could look to make a new higher high. Look at that, a higher high off of that price level. And at that point, what we would look for is we would look for some lower highs to also come in play. When we're using pivots and swings like we are right now for the trend, we want to see that continue on both sides. So I'm going to mark out, this is our lower low. This was our other lower low. And now we have one more lower low right here. So if we're able to hold this low and create a new higher low somewhere up here, so we create a higher low and then we create a higher high, then we could look for our trend on crude to continue and reverse back to the upside. But without breaking this high, I'm going to have to remain bearish and expect some more downward price action on crude oil. It is at a pretty tough point, though. Crude rarely trades below 70. So we're going to be careful with that. When it was below 70, between October and about December, the price action was very poor. Yep, crude oil. Love crude. Crude's a good one. Gold is a great one to trade. I tried looking into platinum, guys. Really poor volume on something like platinum. We could look at it right now. 120 on the volume on platinum. But of course, guys, the orb, the opening range breakout, you could use that on any strategy, on any stock, on any ticker, because the orb is something that we could back test because it has something that we could follow, right? It has rules that are defined. We're not putting a random 15-minute high and 15-minute low just anywhere. We're putting that 15-minute high and low at the open of a strong New York session, London session, whatever the case may be. So crude oil, definitely a stronger move to the downside. Now, if we look at platinum, platinum's been moving lower, and we even took out this pivot low right here around 980, 980. And then when we look at gold, gold was looking a lot stronger, right? So gold's a lot stronger in the metals department. So we have to be careful, and we have to be aware of that. Made a killing negative CL. Yeah, took some nice shorts on crude today. Let's check that 5-minute and 15-minute, see how those setups worked out. Let's see. Perfect. Look at that, crude oil gave us the break lower on the orb, and then it failed to break the high. So that also is another way we could use the orb as a trading strategy and parameters, is we could look to see how price reacts to each price level, because what the orb is doing is it's giving us our range without us having to find the range ourselves. So our orb high, our orb low, we tried to break it here. At this point, we broke it a few times. So that tells me sellers are definitely trying to come in. Absolutely, Ivan, have a good evening. But when sellers are trying to come in and buyers keep failing to bring us higher, that tells me we have a good chance of breaking and closing below. Once we started breaking that here, that would have been a nice little short entry, and we would have been able to take that for perhaps a 2-to-1, would have depended on our entry. Our stop loss would be at the recent lower high, because look, we're taking a short position out of our orb. So some people might want to play it safe and put it at the orb high. But it does depend on the market structure, right, guys? If we're making lower highs and we want to look for continuation, then we might want to be able to target a 2-to-1 and keep our stop loss at that recent high instead of all the way to the top. And that's just another strategy I've been using, guys. The orb has been very useful, very helpful. I do find the gap fill on crude oil is also another good one, but we'll save that one for next session. Don't forget, guys, for a chance to win a free Apex account, fill out the form below, and we will announce those. You'll get an email by Friday if you win, and we announce those every Wednesday, and we have those every Wednesday as well. So tune in 11:30 a.m. Eastern every Wednesday for Futures Fever. We go over some market analysis. We find some potential trade setups that have been working or maybe haven't been working. We try to find the best possible setups for you guys going forward. All right, so let's take a look at the ES and NQ. And the reason I want to take a look at the ES and NQ is to give us an idea of direction and if there's any stability in the market right now. So the first thing I see, and we'll take a look at the ES first. Guys, let me know in the comments if you trade the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, and if you trade futures or options. Love to know. So right here is a perfect example of how I would use the supply zone as an order block. So right at market opened, we were down here. This is about 10 o'clock now, and we were holding this demand zone. We had a pretty strong demand zone. This is a level of support. If we look to our left, this was an area where price was supported. Buyers came in and held. Buyers came in and held, and then even pushed us higher from this point. So once we started getting that same reaction, and we tried to push lower and we failed, we tried to make a higher low off of this demand zone. We have our double break of our orb, and now we broke above this broken supply zone. So I would then look for perhaps a 5-minute fair value gap or some type of new entry. Trade options, very cool. Do you trade options on SPY, QQQ? Do you guys trade 0-day, 0 DTE? Those are tough, man. Those are great return on investment, ROIs, but very difficult. Could be huge against your capital too. Futures are great, guys. Futures are a great way to get started. Look at how this 5-minute fair value gap held up perfectly. Now, guys, this, of course, is a hindsight trade. We can't trade off of our hindsight. However, we could back test with it. And that's what we have to remember, guys. Just because, oh, well, I can't go back in time and catch this trade now, that doesn't mean we're not going to see an equally probable setup in our favor that we could take going forward. So now, what did we have here? Well, I had my 15-minute supply zone, so I know this is now an area of interest between 61.40 and 61.44, and now we broke it and closed above it, and on the 5-minute, we created an imbalance right over the zone. So this is what I like to look for when it comes to finding a high probability trade. Now, this fair value gap on the 15-minute, on the 5-minute, it's not alone. It's with this 15-minute breaker block. So we almost have, I think they call it a unicorn setup. It does depend on what strategy and system you're running. Now, I just find this as an imbalance over an area of interest, which gives us extra high probabilities. Now, what I look for is a double test, which is exactly what we got inside the area of interest. Now, I would look for the fair value gap to hold as well, but I would look for this red zone to overall hold too. Once we got that, I would be able to maybe target the next swing high or even higher. Let's see where the ES is right now. Oh, that's where we currently are. I would like to see if the ES could make its way to 61.55. Now, in terms of finding price levels, I will do my time frame analysis. So that's 61.54, that's a 1-hour supply zone. And for finding intraday price levels as well, I will use a tool like Bookmap that shows me the order flow and the volume. So this is the current order book. And let's check the ES right now. So I see on the ES at that 61.53 to about 61.55, there are a lot of passive sellers. So I know these are passive sellers because they are sitting above where price is currently trading at. If we look to the downside, these are passive buyers because they're sitting below, right? So they're sitting ready to buy. These people are ready to sell. That's 61.53, and that's right near my supply zone, my area of interest. So if I was in any long positions, that would be the area I'm looking to target. I wouldn't really look to take any longs right now because we already had such an extended move, but that's sort of how I would be using a tool like Bookmap. And as we see right here, we had a very strong level of resistance, and once price flipped it and we broke above it, it became support. And that's around 61.45. Again, that's overlapping with my fair value gap, my breaker block, all these things that I already had there. So that's the confirmation. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak. That's what we like to look for, guys. We might even get, now let's say we took this trade. This would be our take profit up here, and it looks like ES is making its way higher. If we look at our book map, we see the order flow. Looks very good. We have another price target around 61.60. We see 408 passive sellers up there. So that tells me if we can break into the supply zone, we might have another 5 points or so to move. But that is near that previous day high. Now let's take a look at our previous day high and previous day low. That always helps me get an idea of direction as well. Now the first thing I do note on the daily time frame, guys, is look at how range bound we've been. Even though for the most part, buyers like to step in, when a seller steps back in, we come right back to the bottom of our range. We have a very strong pullback. So right now, we're at the top of the range. If we're looking at the crosshairs and we could put our rectangles and our tools back on, we see that this area, and we'll mark it big in blue, is the top of our range. So it's sort of hard, in my opinion, to take a long position at this point, especially at this point when we're at the top of our range. So unless I got this beautiful entry inside this broken zone and new imbalance, I wouldn't be taking any trades up here. I'd be remaining patient to see, if anything, I would want to see how are we going to react to the supply zone again. The last few times we've been in here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times it looks like, we've been rejecting it. So that tells me that there is a seller up here, and this is a very strong zone. So at this point, if I'm not taking any trades here, my only possible entry would be a short position inside here with the sellers, or if we have good momentum and we are breaking higher, I could look to see if we could break this zone and retest it just like we did down here. So that's sort of another way that I would look to trade this zone. But because it is already close to 12 o'clock, I know that there's a good chance the markets might not really give us a strong move like that. It does, of course, depend on earnings. It depends on market structure. And of course, it depends on everything, right? There's a whole lot in play when it comes to what's moving the market. But right now, we would be looking to trade the ranges because the market ranges 90%, 80% of the time. And using supply and demand and our areas of interest help us find that in previous day highs, previous day lows. That is also a huge benefit that we have to be taking advantage of. So guys, crude oil, gold, these have been some fantastic commodities to trade, especially with the orb trading strategy that is the opening range breakout. You mix that with a previous day high and previous day low, and guys, you're going to find some good direction and some good trades. Remember to trade with your probabilities and with your setup and system. It's important to trade with our system. And don't forget, guys, Apex is running that sale. They are running the 80% sale until midnight tonight. That's 80% off all Apex Trader evaluation accounts. They have $125 for the one-time PA fee, which is a huge discount as well. You might not be able to use that sale because right now when the sale ends, I don't think you get that sale anymore. You're going to have to see. I'm sure it's in the terms and conditions. And the 150 to 300K evaluation accounts being priced to $297, and then 80% off of that $297 price brings it to about $60. So great sales, great promotions. You guys could scan the QR code up top for that sale, or you go to apextraderfunding.com, and at checkout, they're going to give you a place to drop a coupon. You're going to use the coupon FEVER. All right, guys. Have a great day. I hope you guys learned something from today's session. I'll see you guys next week, and we'll see what setups and strategy might be working in next week's markets. All right, guys, take care and happy trading.